So it's a really common question I get, whether I'm playing at a show or if I upload a lighting video to YouTube, how I run my lighting, what programs I use, what equipment I use, and how I put the whole show together during the live set. So I thought I'd just make a quick video to show you the basics, the super basics of what I'm doing when I'm doing lighting. So I have set up a really basic show with some fixtures in my garage. So I'll just run through them, I'll turn them on one at a time. These are the Platinum Spot 5Rs. These are the megapixel LEDs, and then in the background there you can see the Par 64's LEDs. So let's talk a little bit about the program that I use. The program that I use is by a company called Martin. The program is called Light Jockey, and I think I'm using 2.5. Yeah. And it's basically, I consider it the best software for both mobile and small concert use. It's been around for a really long time and support has kind of dwindled, but it's a really stable program, and if you know how to work it, it is really, really powerful. I don't consider myself an expert by any means with this software, but I do know how to do some pretty cool tricks with it. So during a live show, basically when I start, it doesn't look like this. Actually, let me just start from scratch here. I'll close Light Jockey, confirm I want to close it. Yes, I use XP on a ThinkPad, the best. So I'm going to open Light Jockey here. All the lights, I don't know if you heard them there, they just reset back to their home position. So these are the basic fixtures in this show that I have set up. We have the 4 Platinum Spot 5Rs. All the LEDs are over here. And I can just grab these all and highlight them, deselect them. But let's just say I just wanted to do some fun random stuff right off the top and not worry about programming anything. I can pull up all the controls for each fixture by just clicking on the fixture control icon, and it'll bring up all these other controls. And in here you can control everything from the shutter values to colors, focus. So let's just turn the lights on so we can see what we're doing. So we turn them on, we see that they're just kind of chilling there. And then I can grab them and make them move around and do all sorts of fun stuff. And then, you know, you can make the colors scroll, or if I want to just pick out magenta, I can make it look really, really pretty that way. But that's not really how I run a show. How I run a show is I load in customized cues. So over the course of about the last like 5 months, I think is the last time I restarted my whole lighting sequences so that I could kind of clean them up a little bit. I've built all these different sequences that do different things. So for example, I just pulled in a sequence called Shutter Open into my active cue. And so you can see there's 12 little slots here, and each one of those can hold a sequence. So I can have up to 12 sequences running in parallel in a cue. And you can also turn those on and off by either clicking on them, or I just use a little hotkey F1 through 12, and it corresponds on there. And what's interesting about the hierarchy of all these sequences in this cue is that it actually is prioritized from the highest number, so 12 to 1. So let's say I have a sequence that affects the strobe, which is actually just a shutter effect. So if I load in, let me find a random strobe here. If I grab random strobe and I put it on, say, let's just use 4. Since the parameters that are affected for the fixtures on random strobe are the same as the ones that I have in the shutter open sequence, because this 4 is a higher priority, it'll override that shutter open sequence, and then you get this random strobe effect that I've programmed. But if I go ahead and toggle it off by hitting F4, it'll just go back to our regular shutter sequence. And you know, you can kind of like tap to the beat, turning the shutter on and off, and you can also program it to the beat. But let's do some more fun stuff here. All right, so this is where I have a lot of fun with my light show. Light Jockey comes with a plugin, or you can actually download it for free, I think, as an add-on from Martin. It's called Light Jockey Manager. So what I'm going to do is open that up, and it has this plugin called LED Tricks. So I'm going to start up LED Tricks here, and we'll go into color effects. And I can actually pixel map my megapixel LEDs to do pretty much whatever I want. So if we zoom out here, you can see they're not exactly like set up in a perfect grid because I have other lights that are rigged on there. But on the fly, I can change all sorts of parameters. Let me actually like move the laptop here so we can see it. So say for example I want to like do some really cool strobing effects. I can change it to whatever I want out of my presets on the fly. So I have things set up so that for example, if I want it to be kind of like a slow soothing sequence, I can have this cool little contracting circle of red. And since Light Jockey is so cool, you can change everything pretty much on the fly. So if you want to make it a green contracting circle instead, you can do that. Green and blue, let's say, for example. They just kind of layer over top of each other. This plugin also does text, scrolling text, some cool other mapping tricks. And what's really nice about these bars is they're really, really bright. It doesn't show up super well in the video, but this will, you know, light up a crowd of 300, 400 people super easy. Probably even annoy them a little bit. So that's my LED Tricks plugin that I use in conjunction with the Platinum Spot 5Rs. So let's turn the LEDs back off, and I'll show you some cool movements that I can do with these guys. So every time I get to a new venue, or any venue, doesn't matter if I've been there before or not, you have to do what's called focusing the lights. And essentially that means every time that you rig a show, or you know, rig a light setup, little tiny factors are going to change between each show. So if you have a position set at one venue, and then you break everything down and move it to the next venue, when you set the lights up to go to to that same position, it might not be actually the same position in the DMX world. So I have them set up here to basically just shine on my wall, the garage door here, as what I consider like the crowd center. But I can also toggle back and forth between that back wall, back forth. You know, you can just kind of see how easy that is. These fixtures have a lot of different features, and you can create a lot of effects with them. It's really powerful sometimes to just use them as these white spotlights to make them move and do all sorts of crazy stuff. And they're really, really bright. And again, you can do all the different kind of strobing effects that we talked about earlier. So I can have it move, strobe at the same time, turn the LEDs on, do something crazy, even turn those Par 64s on too, and then I can also just black it out at any given second. So this is really good for like build-ups, breakdowns, especially in electronic dance music, which is the concerts that I do the most of. So, you know, you can have everything blacked out during a moment in silence, and then right at the drop you can just make it explode with color. It's a really cool way to get a good effect. These moving lights also have a variety of gobo patterns, or breakup patterns. You can see I've picked a star pattern here, and you can overlay all sorts of different gobo patterns together. This one comes stock with about, I want to say, 20 different patterns. Some of them come pre-colored. I'm going through the static wheel right now, which means they don't rotate. They just sit there and project that pattern. But we can also overlay what's called a prism effect over top of that, which makes the beam wider, and then you can also animate the effects in the air. So that's super cool. And then you can also affect, like I was talking about earlier, the movement at the same time. Slow down the movement, make it really, really cool. It's also worth mentioning what is actually controlling these lights. The protocol is called DMX. It stands for digital multiplex, and each universe of DMX contains 512 channels of data. So what that means is that each channel controls one channel on a light. So I can have up to 512 controls of individual channels on a light. Now a channel can be anything from color to the different patterns to left and right, up, down. Those are all individual channels. So one channel might occupy just the fixture's color. So that one channel has a range that I can select from 0 to 255. So that means there's 256 values that it can be. So that means all of those channels can each have 256 values at any given time. And the refresh rate is something along the lines of 50 hertz. Some systems are a little faster, but I think the standard is about 50 hertz. So, for example, a dimmer, a basic dimmer, so like a light switch on a wall. Sometimes they have the dimmers where you can slide them up and down. It's identical to this, except it's a digital fader, where you have 256 little increments that you can be at along that point. So these more complicated lights can have 16, 28 channels and up. So you know, you're really just restricted by how many channels in your single universe. I'm just running one universe on this laptop, and it gets me by for most of my shows. I can run about 20 moving lights on this and a ton of LEDs, and I'll have them act individually, which is actually really difficult to do while I'm doing the live show, while I'm DJing as well. So while I'm DJing on 4 CDJs, I'm also sitting over here fiddling with the blackout, or changing shutter options, chases, sequences, and combining them in different layers to create a unique and interesting show. That's the basics of it. When I do a big show coming up here, I've got a couple in a few weeks here, I'll upload a video about the whole start to finish process and maybe go a little bit more in depth if people want to hear more about it. Other than that, thanks for watching. Hope you have a good day.